Welcome to you. If you've downloaded this from somewhere else in the world, welcome to Australia. I'm here today. We're going to go through a presentation based around a book by John Maxwell called Intentional Living. John writes a really incredible book about his own life journey. And so I've taken the themes from that and I'm applying my own life journey to it and having a discussion with you about that. So follow along on the notes that you've got, and certainly take the time to stop and reflect as we go through. So the first thing to quickly cover off is we're talking about intentional living, and up here on the screen you'll see that we're going to talk about your life can be a great story. We'll have a look at why good intentions aren't enough. We'll have a look at small start but believe big. Search until you find your why. And that's a really critical component to any business, any life. Put other people first, add value to others from your sweet spot, connect with like-minded people, and then partner with like-minded people. And then finally, we'll have a talk about be urgent about seizing significant opportunities. So that's where we're heading today. I hope you enjoy the journey as much as I will. I know that I'm going to enjoy it. So let's start off. Have a talk around, your life can be a great story. It's interesting. What makes a good story for you? And I'm open for questions with the people that are here. What makes a good story?
One that's engaging.
Yeah.
One that I can relate to, so I don't feel like it's a fairy story or disconnected from my life.
Yeah.
One that lifts me emotionally and spiritually when I'm hearing it.
Okay. Thoughts?
Yeah, inspiration.
Inspiration. Yeah.
Something sometimes that draws me forward.
Yes.
That makes me think, I wonder how I could do that. I want that apply it to where I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For me, I think immediately of probably my favourite movie, which is Master and Commander. And what about that story means something to me? And I've got 20 years in the Royal Australian Navy, and the traditions that you see in that movie are traditions that are still lived in the current military. You see a mess dinner. You see instruction commands being given on the gun deck. You see instructions being given on the quarterdeck. A whole lot of things that they're all so valid to current day. So for me, there's so much that I draw from that. So it's a personal connection. But we tend with stories to want to connect with the main character or a character in the story. We want to connect with where the story is taking us, all those things that you've raised. And I find it fascinating because we all have a story. John Maxwell, in his book Intentional Living, talks about the fact that his secretary gave him a book one day, and he was so excited because the front cover said, "The most amazing story ever written." And he opened it up and it was blank. And she said in the card, "John, start filling this in." And it's such a valid point to make to all of us. Our life is an amazing story that we are yet to live. We've got amazing stories that we have lived, but where are we going forward? What are we doing going forward? And we can choose to do that intentionally, or we can just stumble through life. Do we know people who've stumbled through life? I do. I know for a lot of my journey I've stumbled through life. It's only in recent years that I've become intentional about what I'm doing. If I think back about jobs that I chose and all, I don't know that I was thinking about, 10, 15, 20 years down the track where I was going. But now I intentionally think about what am I doing over the next 15 to 20 years? And the decisions I make are based around that. So it's an interesting one. So a little bit about my story. I started out as a young man in a family, 4 children, mum and dad, conservative Christian-based family. Grew up through school, wound up going to a private school in Sydney, wound up joining the Royal Australian Navy, 20 years in the Navy, then out, and I've done a whole lot of other bits and pieces in management and leadership, mainly based around information technology. But about 5 years ago, I made an intentional decision that I was going to change the course of my life. And I was going to start coaching, and I was going to start changing where I was going with my life. I don't like the concept of retirement. I actually don't want to retire. I don't think retirement was something that my grandparents ever really looked at doing. And so I don't want to. I want to have a lifestyle that allows me to say, we're going on holidays. And then we'll come back and I'll do more work. So having that freedom, having that ability to do that, and that's part of my life journey. But as we go through, I'll share a few more things around that life journey. But I'd like you to take a moment just to think about the benefits of having a great story. And down here, benefits of intentionally living, taking action to live with intentionality. They're listed up on the screen for you. You will reaffirm your values. It's amazing how changing your approach to life reaffirms what you actually value in life. It helps you reprioritize and put the things that you value ahead of things that are less important. I've become much less concerned about getting a salary in and much more concerned about working with people. Yes, it brings a salary in, but the scheme of things, I'm more concerned about working with individuals than I am about the end result, the dollar result of that. It will find your voice. It's amazing. I've found over the last number of years, I've become a lot more open in what I believe and speak up about it. There's a very quick example for you. When I was working, 6 years ago in a paid, salaried position, I had felt for years that I wasn't ever able to really speak and people wouldn't really care too much about what I had to say. And I felt convicted at one stage that I had to sit down and write a book. And that was a real challenge for me because I'd never written a book. I didn't think I was a particularly good writer, though, when you think back about it, I used to write proposals and all sorts of things that would go to government and get funding and all those sort of stuff. But actually sitting and writing what I think was a real challenge. And then the opportunity came up for me to write a chapter, 3,000 words. I had 4 weeks to write 3,000 words, and that was scary. But I managed to do it. I managed to get my 3,000 words in. Managed to get that into a book, and it's now been published. It's the 7th book in a series called The Change, and I'm one of 20 authors in that book. So, and that to me was an amazing journey, a really challenging journey, but amazing journey of moving from not being intentional to actually intentionally doing things, intentionally taking steps in my life. And I found it releasing. It found my voice. We have on here, it develops your character. It develops experience in inner fulfillment. I absolutely agree. I so agree with those comments that for me, I have experienced that increase in my character. I feel so much more confident to be able to sit up in front of people and not have imposter syndrome. Have you experienced imposter syndrome? I don't, yes, I still experience it occasionally. But it's something that I know that I'm good at now. I can do these things. And people actually want to listen to what I've got to say. Whether they agree with me or not is actually not my problem. And I used to worry about that so much that I wanted to say things that people would agree with. I wanted to be affirmed. No, my affirmation isn't in what other people are saying. So intentionally living moves you down that particular journey, that particular path towards where we're trying to go. So kind of my story, as you would say, moving forward. So it raises for you the next question, again under the great story. But what does your future hold? What do you believe in yourself for the future? You know, I used to be a person that kind of looked at the future and I'd think, well, you know, stable family, house, holiday, you know. But I'd never seen myself as having unlimited potential. And after I started going through this journey of changing to become intentional about my life, I've realised that my potential is absolutely unlimited. The fact that I'm sitting here today recording this particular series, I wouldn't have even considered 10 years ago. I just wouldn't. It wasn't me. But now it's part of that intentional journey that I'm taking of setting out my own destiny, structuring where I'm going to so that I can enjoy my life, and if that helps other people, that's great. So it's all about that kind of thing. So to live a life of significance, John makes this statement: I want to make a difference. I want to do something that makes a difference. I want to do it with people who make a difference at a time that makes a difference. And I really resonate with that. I find that an incredibly challenging statement. And I've taken on board that concept. But how does that sit for you? That's what I want to challenge you with today, is from an intentional living point of view, how does that sit with you? As we continue on, I want you to think about why aren't good intentions enough? I think about the whole concept of good intentions. You know, I think back through my life and I think there are so many things that I haven't done, which I thought I could do that. Good intention, but I never carried it through. Do you have those moments in your life that you can remember, that you can reflect on and say, yeah, it would have been good to do that? It's kind of that almost that life bucket list of not places to go to, but things that I should have done. And so I've kind of looked at that and I thought, you know, I really should be intentional about what these things are in my life. Now, I'm not saying I should go back and, you know, when I was a young man, I used to desperately want to ride a motorbike. I've never ridden a motorbike. I wouldn't go and do that now. I don't know that that's an intentional living thing to do. But if that's on your list, go for your life. Don't let me stop you. But for me, it's not. But there are other things. You know, I desperately want to see other people grow and improve in their lives. Not so I look good, but so they can achieve more. I really feel that most small businesses have so much potential that they're not even tapping into. And I see it as almost my personal challenge to get involved with those businesses to a point that they grow. And that's what excites me. That's what gives me energy, is seeing that growth actually happening and being able to celebrate with them. You know, for me, that's so important. So what is it about that whole good intentions are not enough? What are the barriers that cause us to think good intention won't ever arrive at intentional living or intentional action? What do you think the barriers are?
The story we're telling ourselves, the belief system.
Yeah, absolutely.
The neural pathways.
Oh yeah. You know, I know as a young man, I used to think, well, I can't do that. What about any other thoughts?
Having the courage to do something differently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think we can sum it up by actually looking at the words that we say to ourselves. So in your handouts, this chart will appear. And I'd love you to take a moment and just circle words that you use in your everyday conversation or in your everyday thought patterns. Just quickly circle those words. So, if you say, oh, I wish I could do that, or, someday I'll get around to it, or hopefully that'll happen, then can I suggest you're living in words of good intention as opposed to intentional living? And you can change the way you approach your life just by simply changing the way that you word everything that you think, everything that you say. So you can turn a desire into results by intentionally approaching that. I think it's really a powerful thing to look at doing. So think of something that you want to achieve or do right now, and think of how you would phrase that. Just take a moment, turn the video off, take a moment and think about something in your life that you would like to achieve and how you currently think about it. Then I want you to stop and say, if I change the words of how I think about that, does it make it intentional? So welcome back. We're talking about intentional living, and we've just had an exercise about thinking intentionally about a particular activity. So have a look through that. Over on this next slide, I'm talking about some of the barriers that we look at with intentional living. What are some of the biggest barriers that you've observed that keep people from actually taking action in their life? And I think we've mentioned some, fear of moving forward, sense of not being supported. So not having people around me who want me to move forward and see the best for me. All of those sort of things, they can be barriers. I know for me with writing the book, that was a massive barrier from two perspectives. One, that I didn't think that I had anything reasonable and valuable to say. But the second one was actually sitting down and writing. Taking the time to write out my thoughts. How do I do that? What do I do? Those are all barriers that cause me then to procrastinate, which caused me then to think, not going there. And I had to intentionally work through the process. I work well with a timeline. I work well with a deadline. And so from that point of view, that helped motivate me. But in terms of getting over or getting past those barriers, that was a mental hurdle that I had to jump over. What are those mental hurdles in your own life? Take that time to really drill into that. Try and understand where you're going and what you're doing with that. We're moving on now to have a chat about starting small but believing big. So how do we start small? It's an interesting one, isn't it? How do we actually start small? There's a couple of points up here. So the first one I think is critical. Recognize where you are now and start from there. So many of us will look and say, I've got this wonderful idea and I can do it once I've got enough money. Or I can do it when my life is more stable or whatever is happening. Or I can do it after I get married. Or I can do it, whatever your excuse is. The thing with starting to live intentionally is recognize where you are now and start. That great saying, the first step of a 1,000-mile journey is actually the hardest one to take. Once you step, you're on your way. So what is that step? Where are you at right now? The second one of these, start with your one thing. It's not about changing the world in one big hit. It's about start with the one idea and move forward. And as you start to grow, you'll get more ideas and things will become broader. but you're intentionally moving forward in all of this stuff. So start with just the one idea from the point that you're at right now. Start watching your words. So it's an interesting one. Start watching your words. In the previous exercise, we looked at that chart that said, are you living intentionally or are you living with good intentions? And so you can positively speak into your life. Now, I've never been a great believer in positive thinking, positive speaking, until I tried it. And it's not about lying to yourself. It's about encouraging yourself. And so I see it very much as change the way I say something rather than I desire or I hope this happens. I can see this happening is a step away from not living intentionally to moving and starting to live intentionally. So have a look at the words that you're using. You've done that exercise. Review that, think through that. Start to challenge your own words. Even write them down. What's your vision? What are your plans? Where are you trying to go? It's a really, really interesting situation. I had the privilege a while back of coming into an organisation called Charity Computers, and it was a small organisation. It was started by a guy had a wonderful vision for the environment by recycling computers, but using volunteer staff who wanted to gain skills. And he meshed the two together and started this business. And they brought me in to pick it up and grow it from a small little business, which was turning over around $40,000, $50,000, through to a business that turned over 1.6 million. And the difference was, quite literally, it was a small start, but it was in changing the attitude and the culture of the organisation. So one of the things that I did was I sat down with all of the paid staff and I said, well, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to help people who are unemployed and all this sort of. And I said, well, let's try and put that in a positive way. We're helping people find dignity and hope by giving them a new skill set and providing them with the opportunity to go and get a job. And that was an amazing change. And everything that we did around the business was built around dignity and hope. So we would have a weekly barbecue where we would bring everybody in and we would just, hey guys, thanks for helping out. You're great volunteers. We would give them a computer at the end of their time with us that they had built themselves. Just little things like that, but it was about returning that dignity, and it was speaking intentionally into what we were doing and how we were doing it. Back then I didn't realise that's what I was doing, but it was. We were intentional about what we were approaching. We were taking that small start, but we were believing big. At its height, that organisation trained over 1,000 people in IT, and it placed, of the senior group, which was about 50 odd people, we placed 80% of them into jobs. That was massive outcome. So, start small, believe for the big. Where am I going now? Starting small, believing for the big. So it's an interesting one to start playing with in your own mind. So have a think through that one. Search until you find your why. I love this. I love this so much. It's taken me 5 years to work out what my why is. I worked out what it was, but in about 3 months. But actually refining it to a comfortable statement, I found was the critical point. I've actually arrived at the point where I believe that my role is to transform my business by renewing my mind, giving me the freedom to succeed. That's what my why is. That's why I get up in the morning, because I'm transforming my business, giving me the freedom to succeed. Now, I can translate that across to my clients, and I can say, I want to transform your business by renewing the way you think, giving you the freedom to succeed. That's the why. But the why is an interesting question to ask yourself. Yesterday on my way to this particular venue, I was in a taxi and the taxi driver turned to me and said, "So David, what do you do?" Really nice Indian chap. "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a business coach." And he said, "Okay." And he started to tell me a little bit about his own personal business journey. And he said, "Can you tell me, how do you get over hurdles in business?" And that was an interesting question. I said, well, there's no hurdle that you can't get over if you understand the purpose of why you're in business. If you keep hitting a hurdle and you get to a point where you just throw it in, you don't understand your purpose. You don't understand your why. Because if your why is strong enough, it will carry you through any and every opposition. So how do we go about finding our why? You know, knowing your why gives you the freedom. It gives you confidence. Gives you that ability to build momentum. We speak about momentum in another course that I do, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Consistently living with your why gives you an impact. So how do you go about finding your why? What is it that drives you? What is it that gets you up out of bed to do the business that you do right now? I encourage you to have a think about that. Think about how you can actually question yourself about why. And I would suggest to you, you need to ask yourself at least 7 times, why? Now, I've done this with some people, and the first response that I received was very much, well, we want to make money. You know, what's the why of the bit? We want to make money. I said, really? Money's a result of hard work. So why do you want to make money? Well, we want to make money so that we've got a good lifestyle. Okay, that's great. We're starting to nail this down a bit. But why do you want to have a good lifestyle? Oh, well, we want to be able to raise our kids in a secure home and give them a future. That's great. But, you know, there are people all around the world raising their kids. Why do you want to do that? Well, we want to make a difference. Okay, why do you want to make a difference? We want to make a difference because we want to see the world to be a better place. Now we're starting to get into the purpose of our why. So that's what I say to you. Ask yourself why at least 7 times. Drill down into the real reason behind what you're doing. That's the key to understanding your why. Because if you can understand your why, everything else will flow from it. Whenever things come to you in terms of your business, you can look at them and say, does it mesh with my why? If it doesn't, don't go there. I had an opportunity recently. I was approached to adopt a particular personality style of application. And I looked at it and I thought, you know, there's just something about this that doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't fit with my why. And that made the decision not to go there so easy. Whereas the flip side of that is that I've been doing DISC for a long time and I really enjoy DISC. I see the benefit of it. I see how it applies. It fits in my why. And that's why I embrace it so much. So understanding your why and where you're going with that is the foundation that you build all of this stuff on. So have a think, what is it about your why that really nails it for you? So we're back again, we're talking about intentional living. And one of the strengths of intentional living is to actually put other people first. to actually say to somebody, your agenda is more important to me than mine. You know, a lot of things we say in business, if you want to succeed in business, find out how you can help somebody else, and they will actually eventually help you. So this is the same sort of thing. You know, put other people first. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. It's a fascinating journey to go down. I was sharing earlier about the charity computers concept and just what that was like. But understanding that the client we were dealing with was a person who'd been long-term unemployed, really struggled with any prospect for employment, and skill set wise generally were not skilled. And so having looked at that, having put their shoes on and understood what they were walking through, we were able to design a program that allowed them to rebuild that level of dignity, that level of self-belief. And we would work every day standing by computer benches with them while they're pulling things apart and talk to them while we're pulling things apart. And we had that community and that connection, but it was connection over a common goal. And that allowed us to build up the trust and rapport to actually feed into these people's lives. And really that's what our business is about. All of our businesses, you know, we're selling a product or a service, and it's about building that level of rapport with a client that they will eventually buy from us. It is as simple as that. So the whole idea of being intentional about how you do business, being intentional about, I want to actually build a relationship with my customer ahead of getting the sale. Because if someone likes you, they'll buy from you. So what are you doing to be intentional about engaging with your client, with your potential customer? It's a really interesting and fascinating journey to go down. So, put other people first. The next one we talk about is add value to others from your sweet spot. And again, I want to pick on Charity Computers in this scenario, or this explanation again. I had the privilege of working with a couple of guys in Charity Computers who'd come in through the program. We managed to get them skilled up. We managed to get them into work. About 4 years ago, so I've been out of Charity Computers now for close on 10 years. About 4 years ago, I was travelling from, I think it was Canberra to Brisbane to do some training. And I was sitting in the airport, and a guy came up, tapped me on the shoulder, security guard. I thought, my immediate thought, probably the same as yours, what have I done? And he said, are you David Campbell? I said, yeah. And he said, do you remember me? I said, I know your face, but I don't know where I know your face from. He said, you were the head of Charity Computers. You invested in me, and I now head up security at Canberra Airport, thanks to what you invested in me. What an amazing moment. Absolutely incredible moment that I'd invested in somebody, I'd put somebody first, I'd fed into somebody from my sweet spot. And now they were reaping the benefit of that. And it was such an exciting moment for me. And I've seen him 2 or 3 times since then, still doing that same job. And it's just, but you know, are there moments in your life where you can think, you know, I've intentionally fed into somebody, and years down the track, I can see this as a result. Now, I know we can all put our hands up and say, I can see it with my kids, you know, and that's so true. But what about other people that you've dealt with along the way? You know, one of the things, I'd like to think that, you know, at my funeral, random people, they're not so random, are going to turn up and say, you know, David had an impact on my life, and I wouldn't even know it. You know, I was at my father's funeral a couple of years ago, and a cousin of mine spoke to my daughter, and she told me afterwards, she said, Dad, he said that you have been like a big brother to him. I didn't know that. But I was feeding into somebody, I was adding value to somebody from my sweet spot. Because I wasn't anyone's big brother, I'm the youngest from that point of view. So, yeah, it was an interesting journey to take. So, where are you adding value? You know, are you willing and able to add value? If you're not, you need to challenge yourself to find out why and deal with that. But go and do it. You've got to give value to other people. How each of us does that is unique for each of us. So there is no one way to add value, but you need to look for those opportunities. Looking at adding that value from your sweet spot. So going a little further with that same concept, we have to learn how to add value. And there are 3 points here that I think are a good starting point for you if you need to understand how to add value. The first one, what have I been given? So you need to look at yourself, look at your history, look at your understanding. What do you have in your hand? What do I have to give? So I'm looking backwards first. What have I got? What have I learned? I'm looking inwardly. What have I actually got to give now? But then I actually need to do what can I do to give? And I look outwardly. There's a wonderful, wonderful saying. Generous people devise opportunities to be generous. I'll say that again. Generous people devise opportunities to be generous. It's not a case of generous people wait and an opportunity comes up. They actually look for ways that they can be generous. And it's the same with us. If we're intentionally living, we want to look for ways that we can intentionally feed into other people, that we can make a difference. We do it with intention. We don't wait for it to come to us. So think that one through for yourselves. It's an interesting journey. Can you think of someone right now that you can actually add value today? I challenge you right now, have a think. Who is somebody that I could go away from watching this video and I could add value to their life right now? And I want you to write that down. I want that person's name written down so that you can go away and do it. And it can be as simple as sending them a message saying, I really value you in my life. Thank you very much. Whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But what can you do to add value to somebody right now? Connecting with like-minded people. There is a great saying, you are the reflection of the 5 closest friends that you've got. And that is such a powerful reality. If you surround yourself with people who are not looking forward, looking up, looking to move in a direction, you won't go there. If you surround yourself with people who speak negatively, speak with bad language, all of those things, that's what you will be. So what are you doing intentionally to live a life of intentional living? Who are you surrounding yourself with? There's an old saying that you shouldn't unequally yoke oxen. And what that's saying is that you shouldn't put a big, strong, healthy ox next to one that isn't as strong and useful, because one of them will carry all the burden. The other one won't. The yoke will be uneven. You need to place the yoke evenly on the necks or on the shoulders of oxen. It's the same with a lot of things we do in life. If you link yourself as a business with another business that isn't moving forward, you're unequally yoked. Your business will be impacted by that other business. So who are you doing business? Who are you partnering with? Are they good partnerships? Are they developing partnerships? Are they growing you and growing the other people? Where are you going with that whole concept of being like-minded, connecting with like-minded people? And it goes on to the same concept of, we go over the next screen of partnering with like-valued or like-minded people. You want to make sure that you work with and partner with people who've got the same vision as you, the same direction as you. Again, if you don't, they take you away from your intentionality. So they will actually cause you to fall. Now, it sounds harsh, but you need to get them out of your business life so that you can move forward and find other people to connect with. It's an interesting journey for me. I've been involved in a number of networks, and I've actually just left a network because it wasn't serving the needs of me being partnered with people of the same value. Great business people, I love all of them, and in and of themselves, they are great businesses. But they weren't businesses that had the same value and vision that I have. So I've reconnected with another group. That's what life's about. So it's worth thinking, who do I actually do business with right now? Is that a good fit for my business? Am I intentional about that relationship? It doesn't mean that you necessarily go, right, well, cut it off. You might be intentional about actually growing that other business so that you become a right fit. Nothing wrong with that. Have those discussions. Those discussions can be really meaningful and really deep and actually cause stronger connections because you've journeyed that together. I have a business partner at the moment in America. Now, he and I share a coaching journey. We do it independently of each other, but we've partnered in a business name. We love the business name. We both want to work towards seeing that business name grow. So we've got that attitude. And we've journeyed that journey together that's holding us strong, even with him over in America now. So it's an interesting journey to walk, but you can do it. It depends what it is for you and whether you want to do that. So think that one through. Being partnered with people that you value. Recent connections, for me, are causing me to actually accelerate the way I think about business, the way I do business. This is a result of accelerating my business. So have a think about that. What I'd like you to do right now is actually turn off the video and stop and reflect. Have a really good think about those last 3 points. Who are you adding to out of the sweet spot? Who are you connected to that are like-minded people? And who are you actually partnering with that have like values? So do that, stop, have a think, and then come back. So we're coming towards the end. So, welcome back. The last thing that we're doing, be urgent about seizing significant opportunities. One of the things I'll say to you up front is, I'm still a work in progress. And I think, I'm getting laughs here in the room. I think that all of us recognise that we're all still a work in progress. And so from that point of view, I think it's important that you recognise that if an opportunity comes, we need to seize it. And we're not going to get it right every time. But I tell you what, when we get that moment that says, this is it, and we seize it, you'll know the difference. It's almost like, have you ever been on a sailing boat and there's no wind? And then all of a sudden a gust of wind comes and you hear that flap of the sail. And all of a sudden the boat just starts to move. That's what it's like in business. When you start to get that point of urgency in opportunities, it's like the boat just suddenly picks up its speed and it's starting to move forward. And you've got some direction. You can change direction. You're building momentum. All of those things all feed into that very moment of opportunity. So think through that one. What can you learn about how you think? I take 10 minutes every morning and I just sit there and I think about my business. I don't think, what bills have I got to pay? What appointments have I got to make? What change do I have to make to my website? I don't worry about that stuff. I think about my business. Where is it going? What are the opportunities that lie ahead of me? Who can I partner with? How is this bit going in terms of taking me forward? Is it the right one, the intentional one? But like all these things, you have to be intentional about doing it. So my challenge to you today is take those 10 minutes, but if you want to make it a habit, you have to do it for 30 days. Minimum of 30 days. And I'd suggest the best way to do it is have a notebook beside you, and whenever a thought comes in of, I've got to feed the dog, write it down so you don't forget it, and get your head back in the space of thinking about your business. You know, I've got to pick the kids up from school, or I've got to make sure I go to the shop. So write it down so you don't forget it, and think about your business. 10 minutes every day for 30 days. Once you've done that, it's amazing how that habit is formed. And then all of a sudden, your brain is totally thinking about business. If you've had the opportunity to listen to another video of mine, the one I call the 4 pylons of success in business, I mention a statistic, and it is that 2% of people think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think. And so, are you one of those 2%? Are you one of those people who is intentional about actually moving your business forward, moving your life forward, and making a difference, making a grand story of your life? I want to just thank you for downloading the video, having a look. If you want to connect with me anymore, my website's up there. There's the ability to SMS me. So in Australia, that's great. If you're outside Australia, you need to add +61. Love to talk to you. Love you to express your interest in what I'm doing and what I can do for you. Anyway, I'm David Campbell, and it's been great to talk to you.